Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the German word Angst could have been created for what that country is experiencing right now, an unfocused dread about the human condition or the state of the world in general. And that is because the fourth attack in Germany within a week, an explosion near a music festival, was, after all, the work of a suicide bomber who had allied himself to so-called Islamic State. The bomber, a Syrian, arrived in Germany 2 years ago but was refused asylum. The motive for his attack? Anger at what he saw as Germans' opposition to Islam. Now, after this latest act of violence, Germany is stepping up police patrols at train stations and airports. The bomber's original target in the city of Ansbach had been the 2,000-strong crowd inside the city's open music festival. But when he was refused entry for not having a ticket, he headed towards a nearby wine bar where he blew himself up and injured 15 people.
Even by the standards of Bavaria's bloody summer, this was a disturbing milestone. A suicide bomb in a rucksack spewed fragments of metal across the crowd. The attacker had tried to get into the music festival, but detonated his device outside.
And then I remember my little sister was back in there, and so I ran back towards the entrance of the concert, and I saw a man laying injured on the floor with blood on his face.
When Bavarian investigators studied a video message on his phone today, their suspicions were confirmed. Yes, this was an act of terrorism. The Interior Minister said he pledges in the name of Allah his allegiance to the well-known Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and expressly announces an act of revenge against the Germans because they're standing in the way of Islam and as retribution for the killing of Muslims. Germany's first ISIS suicide bomber lived here, where fuel canisters and hydrochloric acid were found this morning. He left Syria after being wounded in the war, but 2 weeks ago was given a deportation order. His housemate said he told him about his escape from Aleppo.
Did he talk about IS, about politics, about what was going on?
Well, when he met to me last year, first he told me that why I am here. He told me that in our country, the people, the extremist group and the government forces, they are fighting against each other and they are killing to the innocent people as well. And that is the reason that I left my country and I am here.
But he didn't express any sympathy for any groups like
No.
that?
Germany is becoming too used to these acts of violence. Last Friday in Munich, 9 people were killed by gunmen obsessed with school shootings. But it was an attack by an Afghan man 4 days earlier, slashing train passengers with an axe, that was the first here to be claimed by IS.
Nazis raus! Nazis raus!
Tonight, near the scene of last night's attack, passionate exchanges about migration. Protesters against refugees chanted, "Go home." They were outnumbered by supporters of the refugee community. This has become the most divisive issue in this country.
And Rohit is with us now. Rohit, the USA, Britain, France to some degree, all traditionally targets of terrorism, some for a very long time. Germany not particularly in the past. Is that, in your view, definitively changing, and if so, why?
Well, let's be clear about this, Tom. There are many reasons for the attacks that we've seen over the last few days. For example, the authorities here are clear that the attack in Munich on Friday had nothing to do with terrorism. However, what are people here blaming? Well, the attacks last Monday and yesterday were caused by people who had come to this country from outside. And so the issue here that people are talking about is less about terrorism itself and more about migration. People are rounding on Angela Merkel, as we saw in those protests at the end of my report. And they're blaming her in many ways for the Willkommen policy of allowing hundreds of thousands of migrants into this country, including 150,000 from Syria specifically since the start of last year. However, many people, including some of those pro-refugee demonstrators we saw earlier, in that report are clear that the issue here is not only about terrorism, but about mental health and about many other things too.
Okay, Rohit, thank you very much indeed.
I've been getting